When we think of stories of persecuting Christians, many of us Americans think of stories from long ago. Ancient tales of the first century, the martyrdom stories of the apostles. But did you know that there were more Christians killed in the 20th century than the 19 centuries before it combined? According to the Open Doors organization, nearly 4,500 Christians were killed last year alone for their faith. 1 in 5 Christians is persecuted in Africa. 2 in 5 Christians are persecuted in Asia. When I went back to school and did my doctorate a couple of years ago, I was shocked when I was talking to a fellow student, a pastor from Nigeria, when he told me that his church back home was deciding what they were going to do with their next offering, whether they were going to pay him his salary or purchase guns to protect themselves from ambushes and plots against them. He said he knew many pastors in Nigeria who had been dragged from their homes, who had been killed by mobs. The violence is real. These stories are real, and they continue to happen today. Maybe not quite like that here in the United States, but they are happening to our brothers and sisters around the world, including places like Pakistan. Pakistan is one of the most dangerous countries in the world to be a Christian. And friends, 25% of the membership of this church is Pakistani. I just have to say, I am so grateful that we are a church that is becoming increasingly multicultural. And I'm grateful not just for our brothers and sisters from Pakistan, but our brothers and sisters from Africa, brothers and sisters from the local indigenous tribes, brothers and sisters from Africa, Asia, Europe, everywhere, South America. We are a global church. But I have to say, it is incredibly important for us to hear the stories of faith, stories of endurance, stories of courage from our brothers and sisters in places like Pakistan and Africa. And I have been waiting for this morning for a long time. Ever since I met Sobia John, I've wanted her to share her story with this congregation. And my hope today is that when we hear Sobia's story, that we would have an increased awareness of what our brothers and sisters are going through back in Pakistan. But I pray even more so than that. I pray that we would be inspired this morning. Inspired to have greater courage and boldness to share the love of Christ in our own communities. What might God do with us in this city, in our community, if we were to live with greater boldness? I believe our Pakistani brothers and sisters here in this church, along with our friends from Africa, have so much to teach us about faithfulness. And I pray and hope that you will again lend an ear this morning as we hear from Sobia John. So without further ado, Sobia John, sister, I invite you to come forward to share us your story this morning.
Thank you so much, Pastor Dan. Good morning, church. As some of you already know me, I'm Sobia John. I was born and raised in Pakistan as a practicing Christian. Pakistan is recognized as a country where Christians are in minority, and they are almost 1.37% of total population. Pakistan is on the top rank among the countries for religious freedom violations. Christians are living as second-class citizens in their own country and facing discrimination on social and economic grounds, and also suffering persecution on the basis of their faith. Pakistani Christians live under the constant threat of being falsely accused of blasphemy, which is a charge that can lead to them being sentenced to death. A single allegation of blasphemy could result in not only their persecution, but also dire consequences for their families and communities. I got my master's degree in mass communication in 2007, and after that, I started working as broadcast journalist with various media houses and TV channels. The reason I have chosen that career because I wanted to highlight the Christian suffering and violations through media, so some legislation should be done to safeguard the situation of Christians in Pakistan. But soon, it was clear to me that Pakistani media is biased. They will not cover the issues of Pakistani Christians because, according to them, it is against the media policy. After knowing that, I left media field. And then I started working as human rights activist with a Christian organization. With my journalism background, I decided to compile a book which includes incidents of violence and persecution against Christians. I visited victims of faith, blasphemy accused, and their families to collect the facts, meeting with the victims, gather the information from eyewitnesses of those incidents. While collecting data for my book, I witnessed incidents like burning Christian settlements, mob attacks on churches, accused shot dead in courtrooms, killed it behind the bars by authorities before trial, burned to death by beating or burning alive. All these incidents happen under blasphemy allegation. I helped Christian victims by taking them to police station to register violation cases and offered them free legal help with the support of Christian advocates. But victims were threatened to take their registered complaints back, and lawyers were threatened not to advocate for Christian victims. Between 1987 and February 2021, at least 1,855 individuals were charged under blasphemy. That sentence for blasphemy have been issued on numerous occasions by the order of courts or government of Pakistan. In 2011, two Pakistani parliamentarians, Shehbaz Bhatti and Salman Taseer, shared their opinion to change the discriminatory laws against Christians, but later they were shot dead. After these assassinations, atmosphere of fear prevails on Christian community because they were deprived from freedom of speech. Another incident of religious intolerance happened in 2014. A Christian couple who were falsely accused of blasphemy. Wife was pregnant with her fourth child at that time. Couple was lynched by mob, who first paraded them naked and then set them on fire in Brooklyn. When I visited their home after that terrible incident, I met their daughter Sonia, who was 8 years old. Her eyes were filled with tears, and with agony and pain on her face, she was kept repeating the same sentence again and again in her local language. And that was, "Mere mama papa nu saad deta hai," which means they have burnt my mummy and papa alive. Although local police were present during burning of Christian couple, they did nothing to stop it. However, they arrested 76 people in connection with the murders and registered a case against more than 400 people involved. All of those arrested were granted bail later after being held under trial. Justice delayed is justice denied. These incidents have a devastating impact on the life of accused and their families, leading them to displacement and economic hardships. When I was working as human rights activist, these attacks took place on Christian settlements and church buildings, which you are seeing on the screen right now. In March 2013 in Lahore, a mob attacked a Christian settlement and burned 100 houses, which made many Christian families homeless. The only reason behind was a Christian person was alleged to have made blasphemous remarks. In September 2013 in Peshawar, suicide attacks on church, which killed 75 Christians. In February 2014 in Multan, Muslims stormed the church building and attacked school property. They seized the church property and displaced the people and deprived them of their building. In March 2015 in Lahore, 2 bomb blasts took place at the same time on 2 different churches during Sunday service, which killed 15 Christians and 70 were injured, and many were disabled for lifetime. In March 2016 in Lahore, attack on church playground, 70 Christians were killed and over 340 injured when they were celebrating Easter. In December 2017, an attack on church in Quetta, which killed 9 and injured 57. All these above incidents were not covered by any Pakistani print or electronic media. Authorities turned a blind eye on all these incidents and failed to punish any culprit responsible for attacks against Christians. During that time, I started a campaign on the basis of 3 components. First, I used social media platforms to highlight the religious intolerance incidents and persecution of Christians in Pakistan. Secondly, I arranged protests in front of the higher authorities' offices to condemn persecution of Christians. Thirdly, I contacted international parliamentarians, had lobby meetings with them in person, so they can put pressure on Pakistani authorities. During my campaign to advocate for Christians, international media started giving me coverage. They have taken my interviews, which were published and broadcast in international media. Meanwhile, my book was published, which was a compilation of incidents of persecution of Pakistani Christians. That book was available online, and soon after that, I started receiving invitations from different international platforms to share the situation of Christians in Pakistan, especially the situation of Christian women, because they are facing double discrimination. First, on the basis of their gender, and second, on the basis of their faith. In result of that campaign, incidents of persecution of Pakistani Christians were highlighted at international level. Congressmen from Europe, Canada, USA, and other countries started sending letters to Pakistani government to stop Christians' persecution in Pakistan. I was invited to the UNO head office in Geneva to share the situation of Christians. President Trump invited me for breakfast in 2017 to appreciate my efforts to advocate for Christians in Pakistan. After speaking on different international platforms, I came into Zoom Light. And that was the time when religious extremists also seen me doing this work. Religious extremists tried to stop me from advocating for Christians. I was threatened by phone calls and letters saying that if I would not stop representing Christians, they will kill me and my family. Despite all the threats, I continued my work, but later, situation got worse when extremists started following me. I confined myself inside my house because it was a grave situation for me and my family. My dreams were shattered to make my country safe for Christians, where they can have freedom to practice their religion and no one will discriminate or persecute them on the basis of religion. My daughter was 4 years old and I was pregnant with my second child at that time. The situation left me with only one option, and that was to leave my country, which was not safe for us anymore. It was a tough decision to migrate to other country, leaving my husband behind in that unsafe environment because he didn't have visa to travel with us abroad. In March 2018, I moved to New York with my daughter, and it was a culture shock for me. Language, climate, food, culture, everything was different. Being undocumented in this country, I was going through identity crisis. It was a struggle to adapt new systems and learn new things. At that time, my fear and doubts were leading me to questions like, I tried to help God's people, and God has put me into this situation. I had no questions when my daughter asked me that why we left our home and a comfortable life. In the depth of my heart, I wanted my faith to shine upon fear, but the truth is that my faith was the last thing on my mind and in my heart. After fear, doubts, anxiety, frustration. My husband was stuck in Pakistan and lived under hiding. Our son was born in August 2018. I raised my both children as a single mother. I was playing the role of two parents who was also facing financial instability, emotional strain, and the constant juggling of work and childcare. The only medium to contact with my husband is through phone calls where he can see our children growing. In my tough time when there was no hope, I reminded myself God's promises and started singing all praising and thanksgiving songs to God. I believe that what we do in our time of pressure will determine that whether we get stuck there or we can see God's presence who will change the situation. When I declared His greatness, thanking Him for what He has promised, and that pressure turned into power to defeat the big giants of my life. I was blessed to have prayer partners like Pastor Dan, Pastor John, Dr. Jim, Nancy, and you all, my church family, who supported me in prayer. In result of those prayers, after 6 years, my family reunited in 2024. Yes, you heard it correct. After 6 years. That was an emotional reunion of our family, a moment of intense joy and affection, involved with tears and heartfelt embraces. I can relate myself with Job in Bible. After immense suffering, God restores and blesses me with twice as much I had before. The suffering of Christians can be very relatable to the Apostle Paul experiences. He suffered imprisonment, beating, persecution. Christian community in Pakistan are resilient and continue to practice and grow their faith despite facing these challenges. Paul's example of suffering is a powerful reminder that following Christ often involves facing adversity, but that it is also a means of growing in faith, experiencing God's grace, and sharing in the joy of gospel. All glory and thanksgiving to God who fulfilled all His promises in my life. Thank you so much.